Hello, YouTube. A question came in this morning that reads as follows. I'll put it on screen, maybe there. It reads, "Hey, I have a question about what I can only assume is called 3D art theory for games. So in 3D art for games, a lot of attention is paid to mesh construction in regards to good topology and optimization. And I was wondering, what are the implications of having meshes with intersecting elements instead of neatly creating the geometry out of well-flowing topology?" They continue, "To me, it intuitively feels like a very unclean solution, but I don't know what are the reasons as to why this is not ideal." And they clarify, "I am asking about intersecting geometries in general, not this specific simple example." So I answered them in text, and then I realized this is content for my starving YouTube channel. So my response went as follows. Intersecting elements are usually fine and even preferable in a lot of cases. Another person had some really good points about shading the invisible part of the cylinder kind of being a waste of time. You can avoid that though by raising the cylinder up a little bit, but then you're still wasting a bit of compute shading the quad underneath it. But this is really, really minimal and not really a big deal at all. Especially compared to the additional overhead of having a lot more triangles or quads to support the geometry instead. So I've got some examples that I'll put on screen here. And obviously they were talking generally, but in this particular example, regardless, with the cube and the cylinder, you can look at how wasteful a mesh connection is with triangles and quads, while providing us really zero benefit in either rendering or the end player or viewer experience. It's a different story, of course, if you're beveling the connection to make a smooth transition, but you can potentially bullshit that with a normal map or manual normal editing on a one-sided bevel to still save some geometry. Or if it's representing a metal object welded together, you could do a third intersecting element to visualize the weld. So on the left here, we have just intersecting. Topology is 72 verts with 106 triangles. I did delete the n-gon at the bottom of the cylinder just because if you were doing this for a game prop, you would do that. Middle triangular join is 72 vertices and 140 triangles, and the right quad join is 144 verts and 246 triangles. So you can see the left is the most efficient for a game, and for static objects, intersectional elements never matter unless the seam looks like poop and you want to smooth it out. For skinned or dynamic meshes, it's still okay, but can give you a bit of a headache in rigging. When the topology density doesn't match, you can pretty easily get some ugly clipping issues, and automatic weight painting doesn't work across elements well in a lot of software. This is nothing that can't be fixed, however, and intersecting or separate elements are done all the time for rigged characters in games. Like anything where you have multiple armor slots or where the armor isn't just a texture, hair cods are also always intersecting elements, as are most eyes generally, unless they're just painted on. Here's an example from my latest character model, who frankly does have lazy topology, and I would actually probably dissolve a lot of my edge loops before putting him in a game. I like to keep a mid-poly mesh that I bake onto so that, because I'm not making, this character isn't for a specific game project, so if I was going to put him in, say, an RTS, I would dissolve a lot of his loops, but if I was going to have him in something like a first-person RPG, I would probably leave a lot more loops. Keeping it mid-poly gives me the flexibility to put him in different use cases. Right before this video or after this video, I'll be uploading a time-lapse of me creating this character, so you can get an idea for the general workflow and stuff there. Anyways, you can see here that he's made of all sorts of separate elements. This means in-game I can swap in and out any armor variants per slot: pants, boots, hands, gloves, torso, helmet, and also hairstyles are always other elements. Those are the common larger intersecting parts and elements that you'll see in any game with customizable armor, but you'll notice for greater detail, some parts like the straps / buckles and stuff are separate elements on our separate element, because normal baking has its limits and sometimes you need real geometry for things to look good. In this case, we have some straps that go off of the character, And, you know, if I could just bake that flat onto the gambeson / shirt, but it would be just really obviously flat. As I mentioned before, this can be a severe headache in rigging because automatic weight painting, at least in Blender, and the last version of 3D Studio Max I used, which admittedly is a very long time ago, it works really well for a single just mesh without any separate elements. Automatic weight painting works great. You might have to clean up the joints just a little bit because it tends to produce smoother gradients than necessarily you might want for something like, you know, the crick of an elbow. But that can be overcome. You can manually fix your weight painting, or you can use other methods. This character actually uses a sort of automated rigging method that I'm experimenting with, and this is the first time that it's actually had good results. You can see in even extreme poses that I don't have any clipping issues, like the pants coming through the gambeson or anything. With original automatic mesh painting, I did get that for sure. So separate elements are used all the time in games, particularly RPGs, even for non-static objects, skin meshes like characters. In games like Skyrim, for instance, the player has a body mesh and all the armor is done as separate elements. You might be thinking, how do they keep it all from clipping? It sounds like a rigging nightmare, and yeah, it kind of can be. You'll notice in like every game, there's an acceptable amount of clipping and distortion that the developers allow on their character models. Very professional AAA games, in almost all of them, you'll see like in some animation an arm clips through some funky place, or a sword does, or a part of their bag goes into their leg, like whatever. It happens all the time. Players don't care that much. It is like something you can fix with a lot of effort and careful weight painting, shape keys and stuff, but usually people don't put in the effort for that because, like, if we are making modular characters, then there's just a certain amount of this stuff that's going to happen. And again, it's not that big of a deal. Professionals do it all the time. Don't trip out. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Let me get back to my script. You'll notice in something like Skyrim, like, your player character does have a body underneath armor, and sometimes you can actually see that body poking through different sets of armor, like hide armor or leather armor. It's been a while since I've played, but usually you can. And so you're probably also thinking, like, isn't it really wasteful to have that body rendering underneath? And the answer is, a lot of times, well, yes, it is. But a lot of times, game characters are actually split. That one seemingly continuous mesh is actually split into separate components with their normals set to hide seams between them. And then you can hide different parts. So, like, if you know on a specific piece of armor that the torso is always going to be covered, then you can just hide the torso part, but you can leave the arms rendering. And then you also don't have to deal with any potential issues of the torso, the chest, whatever, clipping through the armor from underneath and stuff, which is just bleh. I'll show you an example of how that's done, how you make that seamless. All right, so this is how you can split your base unarmored character without having obvious seams, so that you can hide covered parts for performance. So obviously you need to have your unarmored character mesh here. Got that fella right here, and what you're gonna do is first duplicate him. That's Shift D, just click. You don't want to move him from where he is. We're gonna rename him real quick, separated. Then I'm gonna add a modifier, data transfer. We're going to use the picker here to select the original model, and then we're going to go to face corner data, custom normals, and we can just leave it on the default nearest corners here because it's identical topology. And then when we apply this, now we have custom mesh normal data on here. Then it'll respect that when we just go ahead and select an arm, press P, separate by selection. We'll do the same for the other arm. And let's go ahead and hide the original guy there. And look at that. Absolutely no seam there with the arm that is not actually connected. Now let me show you the problem that we're preventing. Maybe I should have shown you that first. This is the original guy. I'll duplicate him so I don't mess him up. And then we're going to select the arm, separate by selection, and look at that gross seam there. That is not something you see on a natural organic body. So that's why you want to make sure that you set up those custom mesh normals first. That way you can have beautiful seamless stuff there, or hide the parts that should be covered and unhide the parts that shouldn't. So now we've got everything pretty separated here. Let's just say we're wearing some armor that has the chest covered. We would just hide that. Same thing with the legs, just hide that. And, you know, maybe you probably want to have a helmet that extends this far down, but you could say do it for a helmet too, right? So that's the idea. That's what a lot of games like Skyrim do. I think Skyrim does this. I'm assuming they do, but that's how you hide the mesh underneath the mesh. And there you go. All right, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful or entertaining or provided some value in some way, shape, or form. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one.